Thank you for joining this webinar, Acquisition Planning Using NASA's Procurement Forecast. This is the third in a series of webinars from the Alabama A&M University RISE Foundation. It was developed as part of a cooperative agreement with NASA in an effort to give minority-serving institutions a competitive advantage in federal contracting opportunities. Before we begin, we would like to share a message from Mr. Clarence Bostic, who will explain the purpose of this webinar series.
Hello, my name is Clarence Bostic. I'm the MURIP Education Specialist and Music Activity Manager at NASA's Langley Research Center. MURIP is the Minority University Research and Education Program and is part of the Office of STEM Engagement for NASA. Music is one of its many projects. But what is music? Music stands for MURIP for Sustainability and Innovation Collaborative. It's a cooperative agreement for teams of minority-serving institutions, also called MSIs, and nonprofit institutions to create and provide workshops and training materials establishing sustainable support for MSIs that desire to develop their institution's capacity through the competition for federal funds. Why is music important? The expectation is that the awardees will train MSIs to develop their institutional capacity, better enabling them to compete for federal funding opportunities. These endeavors then result in successful application to and management of new funding opportunities, including those at NASA. The agreement extends MSI's capabilities by leveraging the MSI's research with NASA research to develop small business innovation research and small business technology transfer projects. Together, these partnerships develop and demonstrate innovative technologies that fulfill NASA's needs and have significant potential for successful commercialization. The music agreement also increases the preparation of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics faculty with opportunities to participate with NASA researchers and agency missions through grants and contracts. So what does music mean to you? By participating, we want you to apply for more NASA contracts, SBIR and STTR projects, as well as other federal funds. MSIs are given additional strategies to manage their federal funding opportunities. So what do you need to do now? Take full advantage of this opportunity. Learn about NASA's resources. Participate in the process. Collaborate with other participants. Prepare your institution's capability statement. And finally, sign up for the NASA Office of Small Business Programs vendor database. Ultimately, the goal of any proposed activity or combination of activities should enable faculty and associated staff of sponsored research programs to learn to compete for and effectively manage contracts primarily, as well as grants or other federal funding sources. Thank you.
And now we will continue with our presentation. I would like to begin by introducing myself. I am Sharon Brooks Hodge, the Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Phenomenal Management Partners, which is a consulting firm that manages contracts and business development for the Alabama A&M University RISE Foundation. RISE is the acronym for Research, Innovation, Science, and Engineering. And Phenomenal Management Partners is supporting the RISE Foundation in this cooperative agreement with NASA. So here's the outline for the topics that we will be discussing in this webinar. What is acquisition planning? How does the FAR talk about acquisition planning? When does acquisition planning begin? Understanding the agency, knowing the team, NASA's small business specialists, their procurement trends from 2014 to 2018, where to find the forecast documents, NASA's SBIR, STTR opportunities, some acquisition planning tasks for you, as well as some additional resources. So what is acquisition planning? Acquisition planning really is just a fancy term for your marketing strategy. Instead of trying to sell NASA or any government agency just whatever it is that you have to offer, acquisition planning uses the agency's procurement forecasting documents to guide you. In a marketing context, an acquisition plan involves attracting and retaining customers. In government contracting, acquisition planning refers to an agency's plan to procure goods and services. So as you develop a strategy for contracting with the government, you will be successful in retaining a government agency as a customer if you understand what the particular agency wants and the process for obtaining a contract. Sound acquisition planning ensures that the contracting process is conducted in a timely manner in accordance with statutory, regulatory, and policy requirements and reflects the mission needs of the program. So, the Federal Acquisition Regulations, the FAR, describes acquisition planning as the process by which the efforts of all personnel responsible for an acquisition are coordinated and integrated through a comprehensive plan for fulfilling the agency need in a timely manner and at a reasonable cost. It includes the overall strategy for managing the acquisition. And what does acquisition mean? Acquisition means procuring or buying by contract with appropriate funds of supplies or services by and for the use of the government through purchase or lease. Whether the supplies or services are already in existence, must be created, developed, demonstrated, and evaluated. So if you are unfamiliar with the FAR, I recommend that you watch our webinar, Contracts versus Grants. Most importantly, though, don't fear the FAR. Use it to understand the guidelines that govern the contracting process. So NASA has its own regulations. Supplement 1807.72 specifies that the agency will prepare an annual forecast and update it semi-annually. This tells the public what opportunities are expected each fiscal year. This includes a consolidated agency-wide acquisition forecast as well as center-by-center forecast. So what I'm telling you is, if you go up to a NASA small business specialist or a contracting officer and ask, what can my university do for NASA? What you are really saying is, I haven't done my homework, but I want some NASA money. A better way to start that conversation would be, I saw on the Kennedy Space Center procurement forecast that in the fourth quarter of FY19, NASA intends to spend up to $1 million developing requirements for an alternate protective services control center and implementing them in the Kennedy Data Center. If you look at our capability statement, that's precisely what we do. I'd like to set up a meeting with Linda Road or Tim Moore to discuss competing for this opportunity. So a conversation like that says, you have read the forecast document, you know what this specific NASA center needs, you know what the allocated budget is, and you know who is responsible for making the purchasing decision. So the links on this slide will be extremely valuable for you as you are developing your strategy. And I'll provide the URLs in just a couple of minutes. When does acquisition begin? It looks a little confusing here, but that's sort of the process. Acquisition begins at the point when an agency needs are established and includes the description of requirements to satisfy the agency needs, a solicitation and selection of sources, award of contracts, contract financing, contract performance, contract administration, and those technical and management functions directly related to the process of fulfilling the agency needs by contract. So on the NASA side, before they put out a solicitation, they have already gone through their process to determine what it will take to fulfill their needs. How will they acquire a contractor to provide those goods and services? Acquisition planning usually begins as the agency's need is identified. Typically, that is well in advance of the fiscal year in which the contract award or order is placement is necessary. So, as a government contractor, you must not only market your brand, your university's services, but you also have to time your efforts strategically. This means building awareness far enough in advance of a contract award and then sustaining your marketing and PR efforts throughout what can be a multi-month or multi-year process. So sometimes we wait too late. It's sort of like catching a bus. If you have the bus schedule, you know where the bus is going to come and where it's going to go and how long it's going to take to get there. However, if you just look out the window and see the bus coming and run to the bus stop and jump on, that's last minute. Don't approach government contracting and your relationship with NASA as catching the bus as it's coming by. Think about it as a true planning process. So, now that I've explained what acquisition planning is, let's explore your role. First, you need to understand the agency. In December of 2018, the Alabama A&M University RISE Foundation held a workshop at Lawson State Community College. The topic was just this: acquisition planning. We were blessed to have a virtual presentation by Ms. Tabisa Talawaku-Kalisa, who is very valuable resource for you, and she works in the agency's small business office of small businesses, and she provided us with some tools that I'm going to share with you on how to understand the agencies. To guide you in understanding the agency's needs, I suggest that you go to the URL on this slide here. Okay, here's where you can find the agency's mission, what the NASA buys, as well as the small business goals and metrics. Yes, you are academic institutions, but when you are preparing to contract with the government, put on your business persona. Think and act like a business. So here's the best practice. Know the team. It is key to build relationship with the agency before a requirement is made public. So long before you begin to try to propose or bid on a contract, get to know the team. It will benefit you to know each person's role and responsibility within the acquisition process. And it is important to accurately and thoroughly define your capabilities very early on and communicate them to all of the players throughout the entire acquisition process. Typically, an acquisition team includes a contracting officer, a contract specialist, a contracting officer representative, a budget officer, an administrative officer, legal, a program director, as well as a small business specialist. Here is the contact information for NASA's small business specialist. They will be an important resource for you in building the necessary relationships for pursuing contracts. Before you begin trying to pursue a contract, again, I recommend that you analyze NASA's purchasing trends. The data is out there. Here is an example of a slide indicating how much was spent with prime contractors, how much was spent subcontracting, how much was spent on total small businesses. So you can see that they are increasing the procurement opportunities for small businesses. As you are analyzing the data, I also am providing you with the top 20 NAICS codes. When you download this presentation, you can enlarge the slide so that you can read it a little more clearly. There's a lot of data on it. But the top 20 NAICS codes provide you with where to target your capabilities. So if you have one or two areas and you're trying to decide which area might be the best fit for NASA, look at where they're spending the money. So you can see that the primary area where NASA is contracting, particularly with universities, would be in the area of engineering. Okay, so if you do not have an engineering or research and development, that does not mean that you are not a viable candidate to do work with NASA. Again, look at the opportunities here so you'll know. And what are the NAICS codes? If you don't know NAICS codes, then you need to go back and watch our webinar, Contracting 101. The Contracting 101 webinar will make sure that you are prepared to market your services in a manner that is consistent with how NASA is buying them. But basically, look at the topic area here, and the NAICS code is beside it. Your materials should be referencing the same NAICS codes for those services. But these are the top 20 NAICS codes for NASA procurement. Now, as you're trying to decide which center is more likely to buy your services, again, we're referring to NAICS codes. So use the NAICS codes. If there's a particular NAICS code that you are trying to promote or that you are trying to provide to NASA, and you would like to know which center is likely to be purchasing what you are offering, this particular slide breaks it down by the research centers, the space centers, the science centers, as well as the mission centers. So again, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, it's going to have different needs from Goddard. Goddard's going to have different needs from Glenn or Langley, Armstrong, or Ames. If you are going to be successful in marketing your services and developing a relationship with NASA, it's important for you to know the differences between each of those centers. This chart will help you determine which center is more likely to purchase and to contract with your institution. So earlier I mentioned the NASA forecast document. I told you I would provide you with the URL for how to access those documents. On this slide, I'm giving you the URL for the NASA acquisition forecast. An easy approach also is just to go into your search bar and type in NASA acquisition forecast. If you type in NASA acquisition forecast in your search bar, this page will come up, and you'll see that you have options. One option is the agency-wide forecast, and the other option is center by center forecast. So here would be an example if you had clicked on the link to the center by center forecast and selected the Johnson Space Center. So the NASA individual forecasts are Excel spreadsheets that provide a significant amount of information, such as the specific center that will be acquiring the contract, a description of the goods or services being sought, and information on the point of contact. Other information includes the estimated quarter when the solicitation will be released, again, the NAICS codes, as well as, again, the point of contact. So this is important for you because you could be preparing in advance, meaning before they actually put the solicitation out for when they planned on spending that money and what they plan on purchasing. Can you see how the acquisition forecast can be a helpful tool in developing a marketing strategy? I hope so. In addition to the procurement forecast, NASA has contracts available through SBIR and STTR programs. SBIR and STTR are the acronyms for Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Programs. The SBIR and STTR programs are congressionally mandated set-aside programs for small businesses to engage in research and development that has strong potential for commercialization. The NASA SBIR STTR programs fund the research, development, and demonstration of innovative technologies that fulfill NASA needs. NASA issues annual SBIR STTR solicitations that result in contract awards rather than grants like some other agencies. NASA's 2019 SBIR program was open until March 29th of 2019. So if you are viewing this webinar now, it's probably too late for you to participate in this year's cycle. However, it's an annual cycle, and I recommend that you and your team begin preparing for next year's cycle. Again, don't wait until the bus gets to the bus stop before you decide to get on. Plan well in advance. Download the SBIR participation guide. Download the topic areas and begin working with your team as well as with others to determine how you can participate in the next cycle. So, I'm going to give you a couple of planning tasks. I've created a worksheet that you can use to begin the planning process and identifying which services you want to offer to NASA and matching them with the forecasted opportunities. The worksheet will assist you in capturing the specific information that you will need from the forecast. So you can enlarge this and print this out, or you can go to the Knowledge Sharing Center, theknowledgesharingcenter.com, and you will be able to download this worksheet. Okay. I also suggest that you analyze whether you will be performing services within your university by identifying financial and personnel resources, or whether you will subcontract your work out. So if you participated in our previous webinars, you know that we've indicated what infrastructure you will need to be a successful contracting operation. So you have to determine whether you're going to do this yourselves or whether or not you are going to subcontract. You can use other HBCUs as a subcontractor and other minority serving institutions or a small business that complements your capabilities. If a decision is made to subcontract out part of the work, meaning You can do part of it, but you're going to have somebody else collaborate with you to do part of the work. You need to make sure that you have identified what services will be provided through the subcontracting agreement, because ultimately you will be responsible for communicating with NASA regarding who is doing what and how you will be managing the overall effort. You might decide to be a subcontractor rather than a prime contractor if you don't already have past performance. You can look for solicitations that have an incumbent listed and reach out to that company. So on the document that I showed you with the forecast, one of the areas indicates who previously had that contract or who currently has that contract. That would be somebody for you to reach out to try to become a subcontractor. So this is the process, okay? After you've identified all of the opportunities you want to pursue, you want to stay on top of the process so that you can interact with the key people early on. If on the forecast you saw that something was going to be announced in fourth quarter of FY19, the first part of that process is going to be a request for information, followed by sources sought, then the solicitation, the proposal evaluation, contract negotiation, award, and of course, administration of the award. I really want to advise you not to wait until the solicitation comes out, but to get involved at the request for information. Watch for the request for information and respond. Oftentimes, minority serving institutions wait until further in the process. The reason that's important is to start building a relationship with the contracting officers, and if enough minority serving institutions are interested in participating, it lets the government know that we are a viable option for the government, and there is enough of those institutions for them to include us in the proposal, or to even make a requirement for the prime contractors to work with a minority serving institution on that particular opportunity. Too often, minority serving institutions fail to respond to requests for information or sources sought, and unfortunately, that lets the government believe that we are not interested or capable of participating in these opportunities. Please, I encourage you to make sure that you respond when you see a request for information or sources sought. That will be your time to influence the decision makers very early in the process. So the PDF version of the slides from this webinar will be available on the Knowledge Sharing Center, www.theknowledgesharingcenter.com. There you can also access the previous webinars that I have mentioned during this session, as well as other valuable resources to assist you in taking advantage of contracting opportunities. To supplement the information provided in our webinars, we have created a workbook called Doing Business with the Government. I recommend it to help you develop a plan of action. If you have any questions from this webinar, please reach out, send them to me, vp@wearepmp.com. You can use the question box that's on the webinar, or you can just send me an email directly. And if we can be of any assistance, please reach out. And thank you for participating in this webinar, Acquisition Planning, using NASA's procurement forecast documents. Thank you.